Hey, what's up everyone, it's me Barky, and I am here with a video that I've had requested about 1.5 million times, maybe 2 million times, and that is my favorite quality of life mods that are updated for Rimworld 1.2. I will say this as a bit of a preface that not all of these mods updated to 1.2, but the 1.1 versions will work fine with 1.2, thankfully. Having said that, I did go out of my way to ensure that these are quality of life mods. So they are mods that do not affect the balance of the game, but you can argue that some of them may be able to, but generally they don't unless you abuse it yourself, which is fine. It's your game, you know. I think the vast majority of these should probably be added into the base game at least, or have a way to toggle them on if they are ever added in. And I think that if you were a new player coming to Rimworld and you played with this mod pack on, you'd probably struggle to go back to vanilla afterwards, and I definitely can share that sentiment. So just to get the essential mods out of the way, so these are the two that you will need, and you'll need these two for the vast majority of quality of life mods and a lot of regular mods regardless. So the first one is Harmony, and the second one is Hugs Lib, so you need to get those two. Alright, so now we can finally begin with my favorite quality of life mods. So the first one is Mod Manager, made by Fluffy. This is what you're seeing here. This is the Mod Manager. So you can compare it to the normal default Rimworld one, and it looks a lot better, but it has a lot more of a functionality. So I can load mod lists from over here. So my current stream one, my mod showcase, that sort of stuff. You can save them locally, so if you want to put that there. You can also go to the Steam Workshop page and the authors page, which is pretty nice. I opened it, but I don't think you guys can see that. You can also search through your mods. So for example, if I scroll through my mods here, it has all of them here, but it'd be quite hard to find the exact one I'm looking for. But let's say I wanted to look up prosthetics. I can do that pretty quickly. Expanded prosthetics and organ engineering forked. I don't know which one that is, but anyways, allows you to do that. Made by Fluffy. You'll see a few of his mods in this video just because I think he's probably one of the best mod makers you can find. There's a whole lot more to this mod, so it's quite nice. You can color code things if you want to do that. So the next one up is Achtung. I think I'm saying that with enough venom in my mouth. But what it allows you to do is to pretty much customize exactly how your colonists stand when you're dragging them. So you can put your colonists in a position that you want to. Generally, when you right click with Rimworld and your colonists who are drafted, they'll form up one big cube, and then you'll need to do it manually. This just aims to get rid of some of that micromanaging, which is always welcome in Rimworld. Next up is the Follow Me mod, made by Fluffy. I haven't done a video on this one just because I don't think it's a substantial enough mod, but it allows you to track your colonists as they walk around, as if you're following them, like you can do in many RPGs and that sort of thing. Now the nice thing about this, especially for stream, is that it really immerses you in a colonist. It's quite a unique mod, and I like the role-playing aspect of Rimworld regardless, especially when I'm streaming, as I've said before. So defensive positions is next. What this mod allows you to do is to set up a designated spot for where your colonists should go if they're defending something. So say for example you have a kill box and you set up a bunch of sandbags and you want your colonists to return to the exact same spot every single time. Use defensive positions. It allows you to save that spot and then quickly tap T and they'll run towards it. Next up is EDB Prepare Carefully. Now I'm sure we've all known the woes of having to re-roll 100 million times to try to get the colonists you want. The more recent Rimworld patches have gone quite a far way into trying to alleviate that. EDB Prepare Carefully just cuts a knife right down the middle of that and just allows you to customize your colonists into anything that you want. So it goes from the weakest colonists with all the disabilities to some god tier Adam Jensen sort of levels. I'm a firm believer in this mod being added to vanilla, just by the way. So next up we have the heat map mod. This is a really awesome mod that allows you to see the temperature of each room individually, or let's say even each building. Gives you a temperature gradient based on the color that you're seeing. So for example, green is the best, and I think that hovers around 21 degrees Celsius. Bluer for colder, redder for hotter, so on and so forth. So next up is the locks mod, and what the locks mod allows you to do is to designate doors to be able to be used by certain colonists or pawns in your colony. So for example, if you want to have a prison where prisoners have their own rooms but then also have a general rec area, for example, it allows you to do that. So just keep in mind that the door does need to be flicked, so it needs to be activated. Aside from that, it's pretty seamless. So next up we have the Common Sense mod. Now I could speak about this mod all day and night, but it is just such a lifesaver. One of my favorites by far. It basically adds some rudimentary, very limited intelligence to your colonists. So for example, they will clean tables before they use them, which is especially important when you're making food, for example. If they're busy making something that requires more than one material, and that material happens to be different to the second or the third one, it'll make sure they go and collect all three before coming to the crafting table. It is a godsend. Absolute lifesaver. Absolutely need this mod. Next up, we have the allow tool, which adds in a whole bunch of new tools to the architect tab, the orders menu, and allows you to have a lot more options with each of those. So for example, if you wanted to cut down all the trees on your map, you could. If you wanted to, you could have an order to do that. By default, Rimworld caps you out at about 50 by 50 tiles. This one goes map wide. It also allows you to strip mine, which is quite nice. So next up, we have the Room Sense mod. Now the Room Sense mod is quite a cool mod in that it allows you to have all the information about a room at a glance. So it tells you if the size requirements are being met, the beauty inside the room, so if a colonist is standing in, say, the middle of the room, what sort of beauty they'd be registering, and the cleanliness of the room, and it gives you feedback with different colors. Next up is the Prepare Landing mod. What this mod allows you to do, similar in Dwarf Fortress, is to customize the exact area that your colonists are landing in. So if you want to change the type of stone bricks that you're going to, if you want to make sure that there's a river going through the middle of it, if you want to have a road, if you want to make it mountainous, I know that you can make it completely mountainous if you want to using dev mode, but that's the caveat at the moment, because although this mod works totally fine in 1.2 in my experience, you cannot use the dev mode features with it. That is what procs the issue, just because it hasn't been updated yet, so it's currently still set to 1.1, so do keep that in mind. After that, we have the Auto Cut Blight mod. This mod sort of speaks for itself. It just allows you to set all blighted plants to be cut. Should be in the base game. I have no idea why it's not. Map reroll, it's quite similar to Prepare Landing, although this one is when you're actually on the world tile. It allows you to re-roll the map at a cost. That cost is customizable, but generally what it means is fewer geysers or geysers on the map, or less materials, so such as steel or plasteel. As I said, you can customize that and get rid of that cost. I did that personally just because I think the tile is probably the most important part of Rimworld. But you don't have to if you want to play a bit more hardcore. It is there. Next up is the Blueprints mod. So it's quite a simple mod in theory, but it is one of the mods that I will not play without anymore. It allows you to copy paste buildings that you've made already and set up blueprints of them. Absolutely amazing. It allows you to mass produce rooms, for example, if you have the perfect room setup. It just reduces micro a lot, and I really think Rimworld does need a lot less of that. Next up is the Camera Plus mod. I really love this mod. It is a mod that allows you to zoom far further into the game than you normally would be able to, and at the same time do the reverse and sort of zoom out incredibly far. Next up is the color-coded mood bar. What this mod allows you to do is to just see at a glance what your colonists' moods are like, so you don't need to go into the bio tab to actually check it out. So if they're green, they're pretty good, and if they're red, it's pretty bad, close to the mental break. Next up is the Animals Logic mod. What this mod does is pretty much take the animals that you have in game, which are by default quite lazy and stupid, very relatable, and turn them into something more closer or akin to colonists. So it allows you to rename them. They can have their own beds. The beds can be set to medical quality or not, which is quite nice. It also makes them hole more actively, so they won't just chill around and hole occasionally when they're in the mood to. And if, for example, you have a chicken who's laying an egg, well, that's a really specific example, they will go to a bed to do it. They won't just, you know, crap out an egg right in the middle of the map and you have to go and fetch it and then bring it back. But if you do have to go and fetch an egg that's been crapped out by a chicken in the middle of the map, then this is the mod for use. This is the Jobs of Opportunity mod, and what this does is when a colonist is walking from point A to B, if there's something that needs hauling in the middle of it, they will pick that up and bring it back to base while they're doing their other task, which is just amazing. Following that, we have the Mad Skills mod. Now, how experience works in Rimworld regarding skills is that, for example, if you take shooting, your shooting skill will increase while you're busy shooting. When you're not shooting though, it degrades, and it degrades rather quickly, so you're unlikely to have a colonist that sits at level 20 shooting for very long, especially regarding things like doctoring, which is just something that you don't do often, unfortunately. This mod allows you to switch that off or slow the degradation down or change the saturation in it, which is a pretty big deal. I personally have it turned off just because my colonists don't last long enough to actually get to level 20, but you can tune it to be whatever you want. Growing, for example, is quite easy to maintain at a high level because you're constantly growing, most of the year at least. But for shooting, for doctoring, and a few others, it degrades far too quickly to the point where it's not really useful as a skill to have at level 20 because you just never get there. After that, we have the minify everything mod. What this mod allows you to do is essentially minimize most things in the world. So if you want to minify, for example, a door, you can now do that. What you had to do before was deconstruct the door and then rebuild a new one. This allows you to just move it manually. It also has the added benefit of working with almost all mods. I really can't think of anything it doesn't work with off the top of my head, but I remember one or two things here and there. Following that though is the use minified buildings. So if I just said you have to do it manually, this one alleviates that by making colonists choose the minified materials and buildings first before making a new one. So if you have a door that's been minified, they will take that door by default if you build a new one before making their own one. So next up we have the pharmacist mod. What the pharmacist mod allows you to do is designate certain types of medicine for certain types of injuries. So for example, you don't want to be using Glitterworld medicine on tiny cuts because it's just a waste of Glitterworld medicine. The one thing that the mod does that's rather interesting is that because how Rimworld works in that if you're using Glitterworld medicine, it probably will heal several injuries by cuts. You do need to keep in mind that you probably want to keep track of your injuries if you can, although this mod certainly alleviates a lot of micro in that sense, which I love. So next up we have the avoid friendly fire mod, which does exactly as it says it does. So for example, when your colonist is hunting or defending the colony, this will do its best to make sure that it doesn't hit another colonist by displaying a red cone where the shot will land. If another colonist goes within that red cone, they will stop shooting for the moment. I think it's one of the dumbest parts in Rimworld in how prone colonists are to shoot each other. I just think it's so silly. This gets rid of that. Next up we have the realistic rooms mod. Now in default Rimworld, colonists require quite a big sized room to stay happy with the room. This mod makes it a bit more realistic by making it a bit smaller, so you don't need to give every colonist their own personal mansion before they're happy about it. Next up we have one of my favorite mods, which is Research Pal. Now don't get me wrong, I do think the default Rimworld Research tab is alright-ish, but Research Pal does a whole lot more if you have a whole lot of mods. So for example, if you have mods that add in some really endgame tech, this allows you to queue up a whole bunch of different researches, so you don't need to keep constantly checking it to make sure it gets done, or you need to constantly keep adding research on. You can just queue up right till the end of the game with this one. Following that we have the damage indicators mod. So generally when you get shot or hurt or damaged in some way in Rimworld, it doesn't give you a rough idea of where the damage was done or how much damage was done. This gives you a glance value just by telling you the number. So for example, if you take 10 or 20 damage, you know that your colonist got pretty stuffed, and you probably need to get him to a doctor pretty soon. Following that we have the smart speed mod. Now a little secret, a little tip and trick about Rimworld is that developer mode, when you enable it, actually gives you access to the hidden legendary 4 times speed. Smart speed just unlocks it by default, so you can activate ultra speed whenever you want to. It also allows you to change event speed multipliers, so if you want to set it down to 0.5 you can. If you want to set it up to 2 times, you're welcome to. That sort of thing. It's really customizable. Smarter construction, I did a video on this, one of my more popular videos. It changes the way pawns build buildings. It's just the default one is just incredibly lackluster. This one to make sure that no colonist ever gets stuck in something that they're busy building. It is a lifesaver. Not for building massive 50 by 50 cubes, although that is admittedly rather fun, but for filling in holes left by sappers, for example, making walls that are bigger than 2 tiles, those sorts of things. Absolutely amazing mod, one of my favorites of all time, and I've only used it for about 2 weeks now. Get this mod. Even if you don't use the rest of these quality of life mods, this one is just top tier. After that we have the architect icons mod. All this does is basically add in a few icons to your architect tabs, which is just a nice little quality of life feature to have. It also gives you a bit of muscle memory when it comes to learning them. So some mods do have them by default, but what needs to happen is the mod maker needs to include them. And it doesn't have that for most mods that add in architect tabs, but for the default ones it's really nice to have. And admittedly I found a lot more mods that have them than don't. Next up we have the automatic night owl mod. So if your colonist has the trait night owl, which means that they get a mood buff at night and a mood debuff in the day, they will automatically be put to work in those times. It does not do this by default. I wish it did, or I wish that there was a way to set it so it would. But for now we just need to have this mod. After that we have the blueprint totals tooltip mod. what this does is if you have a blueprint set down, not just from the blueprint mod, but any blueprint in total, it'll list every single material required to build that blueprint as well as the amount of work required to get it done. I love this mod. It's incredibly simple, but it has big effects because you can just immediately see what you're missing. And I think that's a big deal because obviously when you're building a building, if you have 10 plasteel and you go out of your way to make like 3 walls, it'll tell you you have enough plasteel for the 3 different segments of walls, but you won't. So it's pretty nice. So finally, and I know I probably missed your favorite mod that you just cannot play without, is the invisible conduit mod. So what this allows you to do is build invisible conduits on the ground, because I just really detest the look of the typical conduits on the floor. I think they just ruin the look of a base, especially when you're connecting up different rooms. They look good if you can keep them in the walls. Most of the time you don't do that though. Regardless, those are my favorite quality of life mods. Most of them I would not play Rimworld without, arguably. I just think they're that good and they're that seamless into the main game. If I've missed any though, please do let me know, because I'm actually kind of curious if I've missed a few. Some are incompatible, so for example, cleaning area doesn't work with the locks mod, and that really sucks, but I'd rather have locks than cleaning area, even though I love both mods. They're both amazing things. I was very tempted to put in a whole bunch of joke mods, but I realized that this video is probably going to last a bit longer than I intended to, so, and I mean that in the best way possible. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this video. I think these are just great, and I'm really just stoked with the community at the moment. You guys are just truly amazing. Seriously, I'm loving it at the moment. I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you very much for making it to the end of the video. It's really awesome of you. I've got a Discord server that's free for all to join if you'd like to come and have a chat with me or anyone else. And I've also opened up a Patreon page to help fund my videos, so if any of those interest you, please go ahead and take a look at the description. Have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.